eIDAS, digital signature, digitization has been in the hotbed, I guess, for many years, if not the last couple of decades. I mean, there's been plenty of national or regional and even enterprise smart card schemes. I think Europe was very, very mature in terms of its adoption and use of PKI and smart cards ahead of the United States. And they went down the PIV road much later than Europe adopted smart cards, as it were. And those smart cards have been in the forms of an enterprise ID, getting into an office, or some form of national ID, because different geographies still had papers and they're completely impractical. They disintegrate. And so switching to a card was more convenient, and that brought with it, or as part of those programs, you had some form of digitization initiative of a government portal or something that provided citizens the means to use it. So in Europe, I think that a greater degree saw good adoption. And we are still seeing people adopting and wanting to use trust service providers for remote signatures or indeed local signatures on documents and workflow. Any new national identity program I've seen, I guess, of the last 5 years, maybe slightly longer, has been the renewal of such programs, where you've seen a traditional polycarbonate card in someone's wallet or purse, but where these have turned over and people have started to renew contracts or look at extended use cases, they're actually now making provision for not just the physical smart card with its keys and certificates for local authorization, authentication, or signature, but they're also writing into their requirements, we want to use remote authorized digital signatures. So that plays really nicely into a lot of the European and eIDAS requirements around proving your ownership of your private key when you're performing a signing operation, as an example, and making sure there's some form of cloud provision for whatever service that you're looking to deliver as part of that project. If you step outside of Europe, I guess Middle East, North Africa, South Africa, these regions are looking to adopt similar technologies, but they're looking to the European Union and eIDAS requirements because it provides that nice framework that's already mature, it's well adopted, lots of technology, or a reasonable amount of technology is already out there providing for that, as well as different providers. So typically in the absence of a standard in a particular geography, a standard from another geography is adopted. So eIDAS is a nice convenient framework that everybody is looking toward. Stereotypically, government schemes do take an awfully long time to get going, gain traction. I mean, I've worked extensively in UK and overseas governments where, just procurement cycles take absolutely forever. And that's born of certain levels of bureaucracy, peering or making sure that the process is fair, etc. But when you look at, I guess, in any walk of life, you've got the need to do something, the requirements, and then the adoption and rollout. And so procuring and putting a particular technology in place is the shortest part of the process. Getting your users to adopt and use that technology successfully is probably the bigger challenge. And if you look at, I guess, an enterprise, you've got a fixed number of people, 10,000, 20, 100,000, and you may have an HR mandate to say all employees must, perform security awareness training by a particular date, and you can enforce that by penalizing people. But in the citizen world, that's harder to do unless there's a deadline. HMRC and performing self-assessment for a small subset of people is the only way of enforcing that people perform an interaction with government electronically by a particular date in time. And the only way they're able to do that is because we're going to fine you £100 if you don't do this by the 31st of January. Outside of that, there isn't massive incentive unless it's hugely increase my benefit in consuming whatever resource exponentially. And therein lies the challenge. If you're rolling out something as a government, how can you ensure that all citizens are going to use it by a particular date? You may have a 10-year program, and I'm going to interact with that service 2, maybe 3 times in the lifetime of the program. So it makes it really difficult to mandate the use of it unless it's super convenient and everyone's going to rush towards using it. Even today, when you, I guess, consider online banking, online government portals, and if you're able to gain access to the statistics for adoption, we all know that not everybody uses online banking. It's been a huge convenience to those that use it. I'm using it on my phone. Lots of financial institutions are now retiring their web portal in favor of mobile apps. But you've still got a subset of users, a certain demographic that will not and cannot use it. They have to go to a branch, and the death of the high street is probably a very strong term that people banter around. But you see branches for banks disappearing, and that's going to really impact those that aren't able to access the online channel. As convenient as the online channel is for you and I, the maturity of technology is probably one of the factors that impedes people from using a service. As convenient as using your mobile phone is, you do see in the media lots of exploits, hackers, phishing attacks. Is this genuine? Is it really secure? So you've got this perception thing to break through, and that's the same for any adopting emerging technology. You've got your naysayers, your early adopters, and those that are just gonna use it in full course. Getting someone who's 70 who's got arthritis in their hands to be able to use Touch ID reliably was just so hit and miss. So as convenient and easy to use as the technology is, it's still got a bit of a way to go to be truly accessible by all in order for those online services to be adopted. So in the interim, or in the short term, you're still going to have the need to use traditional telephone banking or a face-to-face interaction if you're going to go and pay your council tax. People will. I mean, the pandemic has certainly sped along people's digitization of a process, and I think because of the way people are now seeing face-to-face interactions quite negatively, it's helping people to say, actually, I'm not going to go into a physical building because of the distancing and the risk. I'm going to make a telephone call. So that's, those that would traditionally have gone into somewhere are now on the phone. So it's taken best part of a decade, if not longer, for people to make that step. So yeah, I think technology probably needs to move a little bit in order to accommodate some of them, but in the short term, you're never going to abolish that physical interaction. I mean, look at cash. Cash has waned somewhat recently. The use of cash dispensers, ATMs, they're disappearing, but you've still got those that they don't trust the banks. The money's in the mattress. The reason the UK doesn't have a national identity card is because of the large percentage of the citizens don't trust the UK government to handle their data. And so you need systems that are, firstly, really easy, convenient to use. They need to be very, very secure, and they need to provide the users of the systems assurance that the people on the back end don't have any backdoors to subvert the data they're putting into the system, change it, and access it. And the same for an attacker. There's been lots of hype in the media over the years where, I guess in the US, rightly or wrongly, the FBI and whomever need to get access to a phone that is going to support investigations into terrorist activities, and Apple have been blasted for not providing the back door. It's actually, well, those safeguards are there to protect you and I as citizens, not to give government agencies access to data. So you kind of need that assurance and trust that, yes, I'm interacting with a financial institution or a government organization. The technology is secure because it's provided by Ascertia. It's got these safeguards in place. It's cryptographically impenetrable, and there's no back doors to allow an administrator or a third-party attacker to gain access to it. But it does all come down to trust. I guess the banks and government, HMRC sees this every year. The telephone phishing attacks, the email phishing attacks. Oh, I'm an officer investigating your tax records. Can I have your details to investigate? That kind of thing undermines all of the trust, I guess, the promotion of these services. So it does become very difficult. But yeah, you're right. Trust is where this all comes down to. There's lots of interesting projects that are underway, and different countries are at different points in their level of maturity when it comes to adopting digitization. So, as I mentioned earlier, you've got those that have gone hell for leather in being right at the leading edge of the curve with adopting digital for all of their government initiatives, and those that are lagging behind. The UK, I'd say, was relatively mature. We don't have a national identity card that would provide high levels of convenience in the current pandemic. In identifying those that had been issued the coronavirus, a national ID would be really, really convenient for those to perform some form of digital or electronic check there, but it's not the case. Versus there's a country that has gone all digital. I mean, Sweden is pretty mature with their digitized schemes. And then you sort of take a step to those that are looking way into the future. Australia and New Zealand are looking to pilot schemes to digitize the passport. There's initiatives within ICAO, working groups to be able to create a digitized machine-readable travel document on your phone in the secure enclave, so you've got all the security you need around it to be able to digitize that. Because it sounds silly, but you leave to go to work, you leave to go to the airport, you make sure you've got your wallet, your phone and your keys, and if you're a bit absent-minded, that passport isn't on that list, in the same way that your ID card for the office, 9 times out of 10 you could forget about. So if you've got the travel document on your phone, you've paid more attention to having that, you're going to be able to traverse a border. So it's looking at initiatives where people are being truly innovative with identity and a use case. Remote authorized signing is a really good example, and it's being rolled out, as I said, all the way across the European Union. And outside of Europe, people are looking to adopt those technologies to be able to bring them into country and integrate them with blockchain, integrate them with more of the emerging technologies, and be really, really innovative. So I think it is a case of some of these technologies are reaching critical mass. Some are being pulled into existing projects, and some countries are looking at really new, innovative ways of using digitization to change an existing process. I think I point more to the digitization of a passport in that respect.